Yo ho ho ho, Pirate King here, and we're just gonna jump into this pretty amazing chapter from My Hero, if I'm gonna be honest. This would be My Hero chapter 319, simply just titled Friends. So, basically, getting more context as to what happened last chapter whenever Bakugo showed up and it was like, I found him, guys. We see in the beginning of it that a few days after Midoriya decided to dip out from UA, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Tokoyami were basically explaining to everybody that they figured out where Deku might be. And then, like, you see Ida there, and then Uraraka's like, are you sure? And then Todoroki's like, we're only guessing, but Bakugo's like, very clearly, Deku is with Endeavor's group right now. There's no other option that can be had. Which is a pretty logical conclusion to jump to, all things considered. And you see Bakugo tearing up the note that Izuku left everybody about how he was like gonna dip out so that he could protect everybody and how this is kind of all on him and whatever. And then Ida's like, well, a thought occurs. And the three of you just contact your mentors, because Bakugo's mentor was Genis, Todoroki obviously has Endeavor, and then Tokoyami has Hawks. And then it's like, just talk to them, like contact them, confirm your suspicions. He's like, just contact them and confirm your suspicions. And then Tokoyami's like, we tried that. Several times, actually. And then Tokoyami's like, Hawks didn't respond, neither did Genis, and neither did Endeavor. So it's kind of like, none of them are they're pretty much just ghosting us at this point. And Todoroki goes on to say, he's just kind of like, I get that they're busy with how society is right now, but this isn't normal. Like, normally my dad is all for talking to me, and now that he's ignoring me, something's very clearly going on. So, obviously they're hiding something. And then Jiro points out, she's like, All Might hasn't come back either. And then Ojiro was like, yeah, this is true. And then we find out that all the classes have been suspended at UA, and then also their graduation has been postponed so that they can help out everybody else in this whole collapse of society that's happening, basically. And throughout them doing this, they're also trying to obtain any information that could be helpful in them pursuing the villains. And then Bakugo's like, Genis and Hawks were in contact with Deku while we were in the hospital. All Might was there too. And he's like, the letter that we all got. If Deku was too scared to even get near UA, then who else would have delivered the letter to us? It had to have been All Might. They're working together. And then Kaminari's like, but wait, if Deku's with the adults, and like with that group of very powerful heroes and very competent people, shouldn't that just alleviate all of our worries anyways? And then Kaminari also goes on to say, he's just kind of like, also the media confirmed that only the big three heroes teamed up. So, All Might isn't included in that. And then what Bakugo says here, I like, because it's kind of like, it shows his development throughout this entire course of the story, about how begrudgingly he's kind of come to, like, care about Deku, and he doesn't want anything really bad happen to him, because it's kind of like, Deku is the best rival that Bakugo could even ask for, and not even just a rival, but a friend, even though Bakugo would never admit that personally. But Bakugo's like, this is exactly why I'm saying this right now. And he's just kind of like, when it comes to Deku, All Might, all of that, when it comes to how they would act in a situation, I know them best. And this scenario is the worst possible thing that could ever happen for them as heroes. And then Kirishima and everybody else is like, alright, then we'll just find a way to contact them to see what's going on. And then Uraraka stands up, and she's kind of like, Endeavor is UA alumni, so let's see if we can't be a little bit forceful in getting him to contact us. So then a few days later, you just see Principal Nezu just sitting in his office, and then Endeavor just kind of turns around. He's like, Principal, you tricked me. And then all of Class 1A is just standing in front of Endeavor. And then the principal is just kind of like, well, I heard what they had to say, and I figured they should be able to say what they have to say to you. And I'm always receiving status updates anyway, so what does it really matter? And then Todoroki goes up to his dad. He's like, why did you ignore me? Didn't you say we were going to stop Toya together? And then Endeavor's like, listen, Shoto, that sentiment that I had then is what saved me back then. And then Todoroki's like, but I don't feel saved at all. And even with that case, is Deku an exception to that? Like, you're gonna let him do all this, but you won't even come to me about it? And it kind of hurt him. And he's like, you're letting Deku and All Might act together, aren't you? And then Bakugo pops up, he's like, I knew it. And Bakugo's like, admittedly, you probably made the right call, or at least you probably thought you did. But you don't understand anything about Deku. I do. He's absolutely insane. Doesn't take himself into account whenever he goes about things. We've seen this throughout the entirety of the series, when even though Deku knew that One For All had a high chance of hurting him, he was always willing to go 100% whenever the opportunity arose for him to need to use it to save someone. No matter what happened to him, he was always willing to go and even die to save someone else. And Bakugo's like, he's not gonna stop. It's the same way that All Might became symbol of peace, and the same reason for it, and the same logic behind it. We're not going to be able to stop him if he just goes from that point on. He's always going to insist that he's fine when he's not. Bakugo's like, we cannot just leave him be. And I really like the fact that Bakugo's the one who's mainly speaking up about this, because it shows that he's really affected by how this is all going down. And then Endeavor thinks back to whenever he heard from Hawks and Genis that Deku had left behind All Might. And Endeavor was just fine with letting Deku go on about his business, and they were just going to match his pace and follow behind him until they eventually got to where the villains were and support them however they could from the sidelines. And then Endeavor is just kind of he's thinking about this, and he's lamenting that decision. He's like, maybe I could have gone about this a little bit better. And then Sero sees that inside of his hand he has a device, and Sero's like, isn't that a GPS type thing? And then Endeavor takes the GPS and chucks it behind him. And then a bunch of students, Koda, Mineta, Hagakure, and Sero, all rush to it, and they try to catch it. And then they're like, can we please borrow this? It's even if we were only classmates with him, Koda's like, I didn't do anything but be a classmate with him, but still. And it's kind of it shows the effect that Deku had on all the entirety of Class 1A. Because even if he only closely associated with a few people, he still had a long-lasting effect. In the beginning of the story at USJ, he had an effect on Tsuyu and Mineta, showing them the true qualities of what it takes to be a hero. Basically, being able to throw yourself headfirst at danger, no matter what the odds may seem, in finding a way to turn that situation around. And time again, Deku has shown them the qualities of what makes them a hero, and he saved them on numerous occasions. Whether or not people were fully aware that he did or didn't is irrelevant, but they know that Deku does a lot for them. Deku's always willing to help. Deku's always nice. Deku's always a support person for anybody in the class, no matter who they are. And everybody kind of feels like they've only just been classmates with him. They never really closely associated with him, aside from a few people. If I'm going to be honest, the people I feel are mainly affected by whole Deku leaving and him just abandoning everybody else at Class 1A, the ones who are most affected by this, in my personal opinion, would be Bakugo, Ida, Kirishima, Uraraka, Todoroki, and Tsuyu. Those 6 I probably would say are the most affected by Deku dipping, because they've been through the most with him to be considered relatively close friends, to the point where they're like, why couldn't you come to us and try at least to talk to us about it? Ida's remembering back to what happened with Stain and how Deku just jumped into the fray without any regard for what could have happened to him. He just wanted to save Ida. Todoroki thinking back to the sports festival whenever Deku helped him out there. And then Todoroki's just kind of not confiding in us about the problems that he had with One For All. That's one thing. We can accept that. It is what it is. But the fact that he thought that we would just be fine with him reading a letter and then we would just leave him be came as a shock to all of us. And then Ida's like, we members of Class 1A, we're going to follow Deku wherever he goes. Ida's like, no matter what troubles or responsibility come with wielding One For All, Deku's Izuku's our friend. So how can we go around in our lives being happy and smiling and whatever, knowing for a fact that Deku's walking this dangerous and just crazy path all on his own? And it shows how close-knit Class 1A has become as a unit, as a family. They will be a pretty amazing hero team, if I'm being honest. And then Endeavor's the outside world is dangerous. You guys don't really understand how it really is out there. And then the principal's like, they've grown up, haven't they, Todoroki? But like, even the principal admits that given that Deku was the main target of villains anyways, I thought it was best that he teamed up with y'all since he didn't want to come back to UA and put everybody else at threat. But if he wants to, he is allowed to come back. And everybody's like, really? And then he's like, as soon as everybody got the acceptance letters to UAs, you all immediately became precious students that we have a duty and an obligation to protect. And it throws back to whenever Uraraka got accepted and she was just thinking about that. And even then, Deku saved Uraraka, which allowed her to enter the which allowed her to enter UA. So Uraraka is definitely affected by this. And then Endeavor's like, wait a minute, but the safety of the evacuees, like, this crowd is still pretty huge. So if a villain were to attack, that'd be a problem. And the principal's like, the designated evacuation areas weren't just chosen because of how big they were. I'll let the people there know. Apparently, back during the whole cultural festival thing, they had this security system in place that they never had to use, which again, courtesy of Deku because he took care of Gentle so that nothing else had to be done. The UA security barrier is what it's called. And then the principal's like, we finally get to use what we prepared for this entire time. And then it's like, All Might grew up here and Deku's been here as a student since last year. So do what you can and please bring him back. And all of the students of Class 1A are ready to do that. So then it cuts back to the scene where Deku was being attacked by all those people because of Dictator's power. You see a giant ice wall behind the class in general, and then Deku's just kind of laying on the ground with all those people surrounding him. And then Todoroki froze Dictator, so he was fine, and then Yaoyorozu's like, thanks, Bakugo, and then Bakugo's like, I'm telling you my name is the God of Explosive Destruction, Dynamite, and she's like, what kind of name is that? And then all of the people who were swarming Deku, they're just kind of like, our body's back to normal, and they just all just dip from the area. And then Deku is just kind of looking around, and throughout this entire chapter, you never get like a clear look at Deku's face. But just from his manner of speaking and like the way that he's moving, you can tell he is worn down to his soul. And then Deku sees him, he's just kind of like, everyone, why? And then Uraraka's like, because we were worried about you. And Deku's like, I'm okay. And he starts getting up. And Deku's like, that's why you shouldn't worry about me. Stay back. And then Bakugo comes in as sarcastic and Bakugo as ever. He's kind of like, that's great, Mr. One-for-All Successor. Oh, great One-for-All Successor. And then Bakugo's like, so after all this, can you still keep smiling like you used to? And then you just see, like, just Deku just puts on his mask, and his, like, the wear and tear on his mask makes him look like more of a villain than a hero now. And then, like, Deku's like, to be able to live in peace, and for the sake of everybody around me, I need to keep moving forward. And then Deku says something that I wasn't expecting at all. Deku's like, in order for me to do this, I need to keep, in order for everybody else around me to live peacefully, I need to keep going. So all of you, get out of my way. And he starts charging up full cowling, and he's like, he's ready to fight. And then Bakugo's like, alright, bet, just try and make me, you all might want to be. And then Ida's like, yeah, we had a feeling that we weren't going to be able to change your mind with just words. So we prepared for this. Everybody, let's go. And then Uraraka's like, we have to do this. And then that's the end of the chapter. I'm not going to lie. I was only expecting possibly a Deku and Bakugo rematch again. Because, honestly speaking, right now they're kind of 1-1. I was expecting them to just, like, fight and, like, Bakugo to be able to, like, if not overpower Deku, then at least get through to Deku enough to where Deku could just stop and then just pass out from exhaustion. And then Bakugo could take him back to UA. I was not expecting, basically it was going to be Deku versus Class 1A. Because Deku is not at all thinking clearly. His only one thing is just finding Shigaraki and All for One, taking them out, and then that's going to be the end of it. I don't even think Deku has it in his mind to try and save Shigaraki anymore. Just from the way that he's been moving, and after everything that happened with Nagant, and all of this with the other assassins, Deku's just one thing is just get rid of All for One, get rid of Shigaraki. And Deku's basically just completely lost sight of the entire reason that he started becoming a hero. Because if I'm being completely honest with you, regardless of how one track All Might was about getting revenge against All For One because of what All For One did to Nana, All Might still had the presence of mind to act like a hero, to save other people, and to take himself into account and be like, well, I can't do things for people unless I do these things for myself, so I'm going to do that. But Deku just doesn't have that in him. Deku's wholeheartedly focused on just getting to his end goal, so much so that it seems like he's willing to fight his friends that he's forged bonds with over this past year like it's nothing. Like, Deku doesn't seem to care about anything anymore besides beating Shigaraki and All For One. It's absolutely insane to think about that because of how, going back to whenever this series started and just seeing how friendly and happy it was then to where it is right now with this whole serious tone since the war happened, I know for a fact that all my hero's going to do from this point onward is get crazier and crazier, and I'm all for it. Because this chapter was awesome. In any case, end of the video. I'm done rambling on about this, so if y'all like it, comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And in any case, I will catch y'all guys later.